Hi, I'm here today with Lyle Wildes. Good morning.
Good morning, John.
Good to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
At some point in your life, Lyle, there were two really triggering events that one probably drove you down a really rough road for a period of years, and the other gave you 20 plus years to think about that. You want to talk about that, please?
I think my real exposure to the brain and its uniqueness was after I had my automobile accident. I went from a from a lifestyle with a certain behavior to a lifestyle that was almost completely different than the original behavior. And I couldn't understand how that could happen with the same brain, same person, same environment, but I felt different. And as I started to hear comments from people about my difference was a flaw in my behavior rather than a difference in my brain's construction, I was really amazed at the doctor's comments to me about my brain, how the medicine would affect my brain, how pills would affect my brain, and then just having done drugs and watched my brain be affected and the different feelings I had with all those different experiences, I started to think, man, this brain is really the organ of my behavior.
And the second, a significant consequence for that behavior. You did something that got you in a lot of trouble with the law.
Yes, I did. I became disconnected from my community and decided to become an underground chemist and manufacture synthetic cocaine.
And the judge slammed the door on your life for a while.
It was a process that got me 22 years in prison.
So were you just going to do time, or did the interest with your own brain stay with you?
My interest in my brain stayed with me, and it stayed with me because when I entered the prison system, there was kind of a bottom to your life that you question, how in the dickens did I get here? And how's my thinking and my brain related to that?
You didn't just pull inside yourself. You actually went the other way. What made you decide not only to explore this neuroscience field for your own benefit, but even more than that, to want to share it with fellow inmates?
I went into prison with a degree in sociology and philosophy behind me, so I've been a kind of a curious person. And when I got in prison, I could have went to work for Unicor, and I could have worked there for the many years I had and saved some money. Or I could, because Unicor wouldn't let you teach classes, you had to work 8 hours a day. And I wanted to really study. And a gentleman in prison said to me, Lyle, if you read and use this time for the next 20 years, when you get out, you'll be of more value than you will ever be having held a job for 10 or 15 years and acquiring money. So it was at that point when I made a choice between just letting my time exist and expire, or using my time and developing myself and my brain, because I knew that I had to think differently to be a leader and to be someone who would affect the culture on the prison compound. As I was teaching the class, I started to teach the class, I could see people were really hungry for answers to their lives about the brain and about their behavior. And I didn't really know a lot of the answers, but I was in a position to talk about it. So I couldn't just rattle on, so I decided I probably should do some research, and I had a little extra time on my hands, so I started reading. And it seemed like every time I read a book, and if I stood upon that book, I could see further down the road. So every time I read a book, I could see further down the road. And that interaction between reading and facilitating what I've read into the audience, with the audience, has made my life a catch-22 of I want to do more, I want to know more, people want to hear more, I'm going to tell them more, I got to get more. And so it was just a hunger for me to change my own life as I watched it in other people's lives.
When you regained your freedom and you had a choice about how you were going to live in the world, you could have done a lot of things. But you chose, in fact, to advance the theory, the neuroscience of this life work for you. And now you're presenting to audiences all over the country. What motivated you to go that route with your life?
I think the factor that really made me decide I wanted to do this was the hunger of the people who asked me questions about how did I survive 20 years. Not only how did I survive it, but how did I survive it with the attitude that I have. Because they've seen other people come out of prison who aren't as excited about helping other people as what I am. And I know that if I'm going to be able to understand and become all that I can be, I have to continue to read and I have to continue to interact with my audience, because it's there that the activity takes place.
For most of us, even if we accept your invitation to have a more personal relationship with our brain, it's hard for us to keep that up for any period of time. You've provided in your work that I've read a kind of a good rule to go with. It has to do with basically 7 seconds.
Well, there's nothing we can do to change the past. There is something we can do about the way in which we understand the past. And there's nothing we can do about the future in terms of having it happen today. So it will happen and we will get there. So the most important part is to live right now. And when I say right now, I have broken it down to 7 seconds. The 2 seconds that's leaving as we speak now, and the 2 seconds that are coming in as we're talking, and we're in the 3 seconds that we are present right now. And I was in prison 585 million seconds, and I did most of that time 3 seconds at a time, because this is the only time you have to be in control of your life. And it's easy to handle 3 seconds. If we don't monitor what our brain is doing, it's going to be functioning on automatic pilot, and there'll be no control of your life in terms of where it's going.
That's a pretty big responsibility for me.
It's an opportunity, not a responsibility.
So clients want to know what they're buying, public sector or private sector. Are there 2, 3, or 4 primary things that you want every client to know as they're considering having a relationship with your company?
There are. I think the first one would be having an awareness of the importance of building a relationship with your brain. And then taking that importance and understanding that you're going to have to monitor it and change course where it needs to be. So just keeping that awareness that that has to be done. Second is I believe that you have to build a trust in the universe that you can have the world you want and that change is possible. There is a process for it. It is not an event. It happens, and you have control to do that. That builds motivation and excitement. And third is to really practice living in the 3 seconds. And living in the 3 seconds will allow you to determine the thought you're going to have, and the longer you have that thought, the sooner it becomes a pathway in your brain, and then it's yours. You can trust it, and it'll function automatically. And fourth is understanding the umbrella of emotions that you live under. You're happy, you're sad, you're just having moods all the time. And to understand that that is chemical, and that you can have an effect on it if you live properly and meaningfully in the 3 seconds. And so you are both in control of your life and your emotions.
I don't know that any of us are very good at even taking your best work and waking up the next Monday or the next Saturday and remembering what to do with it. I can be helped often if I know that I can go to get a reminder, or if I can leave your session with something that allows me to take a bit of Lyle with me. Does your company provide me with a way that I can take some of you with me or be reminded of what I should be working on in my own life?
Yes, we do. I know that the brain defaults back to its normal way, and you'll forget about my speech unless you have some way of being notified internally or externally that you have to rethink this because your brain has now defaulted. People are going to have a way, if there's hundreds of them, if there's 1,000 of them, each person can come into my website and be reminded of the content that we talked about and reminded of the importance of staying in those 3 seconds.
You worked with a whole county of public service employees,
I have.
and it was over many months.
Yes.
It seems to me that you talked about actually a pocket guide, something that would fit in your pocket.
Yes.
What was that?
It was a pocket guide that explained their mission statement. It actually stated their mission statement and their core values. And then each page was a description of what that core value meant. And it was in their pocket because like a month later, after we had identified the core values, some 25 people were in a meeting and they could only remember 3 of them. And so they said, we need something to keep us on top of this. And I think that's really important to think about, because if the brain isn't given a repetition, it will go back to its old habits of what it's been doing. And for a company to change its culture, it really has to have a way for that culture to be reminded, and ways to learn it, ways to act it, to think it, and then even the corporation starts to form the habits of functioning that way.
For some reason, I think, Lyle, probably because I'm close to your age, that maybe with a lot of life experience, I might be more receptive to what you have to say about the relationship I have with my own brain. Is that true when you work with young people?
It seems that the young people hear it better than some of us who have many years behind us that have such a deeply built-in pathways of the brain that it's much harder to change. Younger people seem to be more searching, and their brain seems to be has more plasticity to it in terms of curiosity.
Okay. Most clients, whether in the public sector or the private sector, have to have something to go on when they're going to make when they're going to make a decision internally about whether or not to work with you and your company. Does brain work individually really result in my wanting to be better at what I do every day? Is that the best way to get at customer service?
Yes, if a corporation has its core values, and those core values are in harmony with the individual core values, and then that's understood and how that would manifest out to customer service, the employee will need to think about, concentrate on, practice, and use the language in their head as well as out their mouth to build that so that it becomes a new way of being in the world.
I'd like to thank you, Lyle, for sharing a lot of honesty and your life work with us today. And I'd like to extend on your behalf to those audiences that haven't met you yet, don't miss this opportunity. Go ahead and open the door.
Thank you.